There's the pole sitter, Jarno Trulli, pouring into pits. Just listen to the crowd. It's the strangest race ever, and it gets underway now. What is the reaction of the crowd?
Michael Schumacher comes to Manicourt after winning the public testing session that masqueraded as the United States Grand Prix. He's chasing an unprecedented 8th win here. Formula One has to get back on track fast, starting this weekend with the French Grand Prix. Hello there. Who was to blame? How did it happen? Could it happen again? All valid questions after the six-pack shambles at Indianapolis. We now have a clearer picture of exactly what happened. The teams, the governing body and the drivers have done their best to explain their positions.
Formula One's been playing the blame game in France this week. The 7 Michelin teams were found guilty of not coming to a race with the right equipment. The bosses are angry. 6 teams will appeal.
Simple fact is the option of not appealing would have been guilt by admission, and we're guilty of nothing. We're just guilty of putting the driver's safety first.
The situation is steeped in F1 politics. ITV has seen a consultation document that will be discussed by everyone except Ferrari and Jordan at a meeting next week. On that agenda, a potential change in the sport's governance.
How do you react to some of the teams, Max, saying, actually, it's you that's the problem here?
It's just nonsense, because the thing is that the problem is they didn't have the right equipment. Suppose it had been different and it had been Bridgestone, and Ferrari and the Bridgestone teams had come to Charlie Whiting saying, got a problem with our tyres, can you put a chicane in turn 13? You imagine the Michelin tyres would have fallen about laughing.
The day after Indy, Michelin's share price dropped 3%. Michelin have tried to defuse the situation by refunding the fans the cost of their race tickets. Won't this cost them millions?
Maybe, but when you make a mistake, you have to pay for it.
Why did it happen? Well, simply Michelin made a huge mistake. They underestimated the loadings that the banked turn 13 would put on the tyre. It couldn't cope with the stress and would blow itself apart after 10 laps. It was not a safe tyre.
Well, it was crystal clear by that time already. You know, we had a tyre failure on Ricciardo's car. I had a tyre failure after the eighth lap. I think even Jarno had a problem on his free practice tyre already. So, you know, we all knew that it was impossible to drive.
The only way the Michelins could race was if the speed was reduced by building a chicane in the middle of turn 13. Without a chicane, 7 teams had no choice but to pull out. Possible solutions were suggested. Why couldn't the Michelin drivers just slow down through there?
You don't drive slowly in a fast corner. That is a driver killer, because someone else can misjudge the speed. I would defy anyone who's a driver to believe you could have that as an option.
We had so many meetings that morning in Indianapolis that everything was quite clear about the problem and about the safety.
We should have found a way to still being able to drive that afternoon. Maybe not race, but drive.
In the end, the truth of the matter was we didn't want an accident, obviously, where we could hurt anybody. I mean, really now, I suppose, if we'd have all got together and said, look, we need to entertain the public because that's our job, why can't we all run Bridgestone tyres? Because they were okay. It would have solved the problem, but it wasn't that easy at the time.
So normal service resumes here in France. We have a full 20-car grid as well. But championship contender Kimi Raikkonen's weekend was ruined when his brand new Mercedes engine failed on the first flying lap in the second practice session on Friday. That really is so costly. It means a 10-place demotion down the grid. Tony Jardine has the full lineup.
It's close up front, just half a second between the top 9 as Alonso claimed his second French pole for Renault. Truly on the front row for the 4th time this year. 3rd, Schumacher showed Ferrari form, just 1/10 off pole. 4th, Takuma Sato in the thick of it. 5th, Barrichello faded in the last sector. Visi lost momentum, 3/10 dropping him to 6th. Button 7th in the VAR. 8th, Montoya's McLaren suffered from an early qualifying slot. 9th, and happily completing the top 10, Massa and Villeneuve for Sauber. 11th, Ralf Schumacher's Toyota. 12th, Webber. 13th, Raikkonen, qualified 3rd, but his charge affected by a 10-place engine penalty. 14th, Heidfeld. 15th, Coulthard was too cautious. 16th, Klein, who crashed on Friday. 17th, Karthikeyan's Jordan. 18th, Friesacker. 19th, Montero's Jordan. And 20th, Christian Albers in the 2nd Minardi.
So at their home race, we have a Renault up front on Michelin tyres. It's effectively half-time in F1 2005. Here's the best of race 10, the French Grand Prix, with Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Two great friends on the front row of the grid, Fernando Alonso and Jarno Trulli, from their days together in the Renault team, but here they're racing against each other. Trulli's pointed towards Alonso. When the red lights go out, we'll be racing at Magny-Cours. The French Grand Prix is go! Loads of smoke flies up from the back as Alonso sweeps majestically into turn one. Schumacher, it looks like, is into his third place behind Jarno Trulli, with Barrichello fourth. Takuma Sato looks like he's lost out there. He was fourth on the grid. He's at least fifth. Fisichella has held place. He was sixth on the grid. Looks like he's still sixth place now. And Alonso's getting away. Any sign of Michael Schumacher trying to attack the back of Jarno Trulli as the Red Bulls make their way through the field.
Yes, I think Barrichello's leapfrog Sato, and also Montoya looks like he's got himself ahead of Jenson Button, and Raikkonen making his way through the pack. He's shown P12, having started 13th, made up one slot away from the start.
Alonso leads, Trulli second, Michael Schumacher is in third place, Barrichello fourth, Sato is fifth, sixth is Fisichella. We're riding on board with Kimi Raikkonen, who's got one place up on the grid. He's in 12th now from 13th at the start. Juan Montoya, as we said, is up to 7th, Button down to 8th, Massa 9th, Villeneuve 10th, Ralf Schumacher 11th, and then it's Raikkonen.
Well, how well behaved was that? Most of them haven't had a race now for 3 weeks, of course, having not performed 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis, and they certainly were pretty cautious around there. You can lose a race on the first lap, but you can't really win it. But look at Alonso scampering away. 1.4 seconds is his lead, and the two Ferraris in line. Barrichello's dropped off there a little bit because he went wide, very wide, in the 180 corner on the first lap. Coulthard maintains 15th place.
Well, Raikkonen is looking very aggressive on the back of Villeneuve. We're cutting now to a replay of the start. As Martin said, very neat and tidy, everybody away.
Yeah, as you can just see the fourth car there, Barrichello pushing Sato back. But the Ferraris haven't got that initial grip. We're now watching, we're on board with Sato. We'll see Barrichello hold it around the outside. Sato getting out of the throttle quite early there, has to be said. Alonso, though, just strolling away at the front. That looks very easy. This is Kimi Raikkonen making the pass for 10th place on Jacques Villeneuve, on board with Raikkonen now, and he's coming up behind the second Sauber of Felipe Massa. Alonso's lead now 13 seconds, and he's 17 seconds ahead of his teammate in 6th. This is the field spread thing we've been talking about more and more this season. Alonso's got away. Trulli is running his own race. I just sense, James, a little bit of a, okay, let's get this first phase of the Grand Prix over. Long way to go yet, and we'll go racing a little bit later on, but none of them can respond to Alonso. I bet they're all sitting and hoping he'll be pitting anytime soon.
Well, it's interesting because he's 23 seconds now ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, his main title rival, who is in 10th place. That's more than a pit stop ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. So if he is 3 stopping and Raikkonen is 2 stopping, Raikkonen will not go past him at the first round of pit stops. Alonso will easily be able to rejoin in front of him. So we're certainly expecting Raikkonen, as the course of this race goes on, to cut his way very quickly through the field, rather in the way that Michael Schumacher did at Imola, if you remember. He was held up in the early phase of the Grand Prix by a number of cars, but once he was released, he was unbelievably quick, and he came up to the back of race leader Fernando Alonso in the closing stages, one of the most thrilling climaxes we've seen for many years. Quite possible we could have a similar situation here this afternoon, but Alonso does seem to be getting away a little bit at the moment. Raikkonen will be concerned about that. Alonso leading 14 seconds then over Trulli. Schumacher, Barrichello, Sato and Fisichella all tucked up behind.
So 19 runners remaining then, with Frisacker back out on the track. Only Christian Klien in the Red Bull, who stopped with lack of fuel pressure, as Rubens Barrichello pits from 4th place, the first Ferrari in. Alonso then had every bit as much fuel as the majority of the others at least, and his lead of 25 seconds is pure, raw, brilliant pace.
Yep, it's all him and the car working beautifully together in harmony as Rubens Barrichello rejoins. He was 4th. We'll have to wait and see where he's going to come back. It'll be somewhere around 10th or 11th. He'll be behind, certainly, Kimi Raikkonen, that's for sure. Raikkonen then moving up to 7th, Montoya up to 5th, picking their way through the field as these cars all come into pit. We're expecting Jenson Button will probably pit fairly soon, Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli as well, and that will release the McLarens.
This is a curious racetrack. I drove here for 2 years with Ligier, whose factory's right on turn 1. We did thousands of laps. You spend all Grand Prix weekend fine-tuning and fettling your car, and it felt good. You qualified well. And then you go into the race, and it's like, what is this? Where did this come from? How did I end up with a car that's so bad? Maybe track temperature changes, 52 degrees at the moment. But you turn into Estoril Corner on lap 2 or lap 3, and it's like it just wants to carry on like a super tanker. And it's a really curious racetrack as Michael Schumacher pits, Trulli too, so they are in at identical times. Will they try and short field Michael to get him out in front of the Toyota?
Well, if he takes the pleasure now, he'll take the pain later on from having to pit, but he wants to clear air. That was a very quick stop from the Ferrari team, Michael Schumacher. Trulli looks like he's taking a bit more fuel on. Schumacher's making his way down the pit lane now. He'll be behind. Trulli will be behind Michael Schumacher, I believe, as they go out. There you are, you saw Michael Schumacher in the distance. He's jumped him at the first round of pit stops, but the price he's paid is that he's carrying less fuel than he ideally would want to, perhaps, at this stage. It's a 3-stop strategy, I believe, for Michael Schumacher. Williams in then, making some adjustments there to the front of Nick Heidfeld's car. He pitted from 13th place, but the important headline here is that Schumacher is released, and he can now start to get on with his business.
Surely Trulli's gone to a 2-stopper with that. There's a lot of fuel, unless we didn't see it, unless they had a rig problem getting the rig on. Trulli's changed strategy at this point in the Grand Prix. Michael looks firmly set for a 3-stopper, doesn't he? And now we're going to see his true pace.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this racetrack is you don't lose very much time by making a pit stop, which tends to lead you towards thinking about stopping more often, perhaps. Takes less out of the tyres if you don't carry as much weight around at any one time. Renault getting ready then for one of its 2 drivers. Nothing much to choose between the 2 strategies. Let's just see what Fisichella does from 2nd place then at this stage. Jenson Button is also in the BAR Honda from 4th place.
I hate this pit lane. It's so narrow. It's scary to be down there. They had to change the fuel rigs. The problem with his primary fuel rig, away he goes very, very close to the Jenson Button's BAR, and he's lost a place.
Well, he's lost 2 because he lost one on the racetrack to Juan Montoya as well, who's still going strongly out there. And so that was a costly moment for Giancarlo Fisichella, who's had all the bad luck, really, for Renault this season. A series of retirements, and here again, a technical problem impedes him. Mark Webber exits. He was in 10th place before he made that stop. Not a competitive weekend, this, for the Williams BMW team. Here's the race leader and championship leader in for his first stop, Ted Kravitz.
Well, they've reset the fuel rigs. Let's hope they work this time. Yes, it does. And indeed, they're adjusting the front tyre pressures on Alonso. Good stop by the Renault boys, adjusting the tyre pressures on Fernando Alonso's front tyres. So, wow, he wasn't happy with the balance. He could go even quicker.
Yes, I mean, he had a 29-second advantage, so there's no need for him to change strategy. Surely he's sticking with a 2-stopper. And we're now seeing Raikkonen still out there, still on the same fuel. And it looks like his was the 2nd standout lap of qualifying, because Alonso's was surely the standout lap. But remember, Raikkonen placed 3rd and then took a 10-place drop because of an engine change. So the McLarens are fast. Now we're going to see them coming through the pack. Coulthard finally pits from 9th place. Alonso leads Montoya by 11 seconds. Raikkonen just 3.3 behind. Michael Schumacher, who has stopped a further 14 and runs 4th at the moment.
So when are the 2-stopping McLarens going to come in and make their pit stop? There's almost contact there between the Williams and the David Coulthard's Red Bull coming out of the pit lane. He didn't cross the white line. What he did was entirely legitimate, but he very nearly collided with Nick Heidfeld. They're racing each other for position. That was for 15th place. For 14th place, and they very nearly hit each other.
Yeah, this was absolutely. The 2 Williams and Coulthard have been very much nose to tail since the start of this Grand Prix, and Heidfeld knew he had to squeeze David out. No reason why he shouldn't. So it's a tough game out there, and Coulthard almost running wide with it, but just tippy-toed around the outside. That's what it's all about.
So when are the 2 McLarens going to make their stops? Well, you're expecting them in around about lap 25, which is in sort of 3 or 4 laps time, something along those lines. And to maintain their competitiveness, they're going to need to put the hammer down a little bit. There's a huge traffic jam down there at the Adelaide hairpin involving Rubens Barrichello, Takuma Sato as well involved in that, and Jarno Trulli.
Alonso's lead down to just 8.3 seconds now, and he's going to be very surprised to get the hurry up shortly, because that's what Renault are going to have to tell him. OK, Fernando, you've got to start pushing harder. And McLaren team getting ready for their first scheduled stop.
Which of the two drivers is it going to be? Raikkonen is again on another flyer. Fastest first sector of anybody so far. This is lap 25 out of 70. Long way to go still in this Grand Prix, and we haven't even started to talk about the damage of the rear tyres and how that will come into play later on. Certainly in the Grand Prix early part of this season, we've seen it be a major factor as Montoya, the first on the road of the two McLarens, dives into the pits. Raikkonen goes past. He will have carried more fuel in qualifying because he knew he was going to take a 10th place drop on the grid for having changed his engine. So Raikkonen has more than Montoya. That could be decisive here this afternoon. He was 2 seconds behind Montoya before that stop. A little bit slow away for Montoya, but he's back in the game.
And if Raikkonen can get himself some more hot sectors, if not a couple of hot laps, he might just leapfrog his teammate. Remember, that happened here last year between Montoya and his Williams teammate Ralf Schumacher, and he went absolutely ballistic about it.
Well, while we're watching this, I imagine there's been a bit of a dice down into the first corner between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya, because we saw Michael Schumacher go past us here. We're right above the Ferrari garage after we'd seen Montoya leaving his pit box. So we don't know which of those two has ended up on front on the racetrack, but I fancy it would have been perhaps not quite as close as Coulthard and Heidfeld, but it certainly is a ding-dong between those two, and there's no love lost between them. This is looking good then for Kimi Raikkonen. If that's where Michael Schumacher was relative to them, he needs another couple of laps, and he should be able to leapfrog the Ferrari.
We can't see the pit lane from the commentary box because we're literally right on top of it, but Alonso's lead down to just 7.9 seconds after, or when Montoya pitted. He's 9.2 ahead of Raikkonen. He's got a race on this afternoon now, Alonso. He's got to start pushing harder, no doubt about it.
And Montoya did get out in front of Michael Schumacher. Just seen him out of the corner of my eye. We were looking at this midfield battle, but Montoya managed to get out in front of Michael Schumacher. He crosses the start-finish line now with Schumacher behind him. So it's Alonso, Raikkonen, Montoya, Michael Schumacher, the front four. I'm afraid the director's following the wrong story here.
Down into Lice, Fisichella, who's down in 9th place now, and nothing like the pace of his teammate. He's been struggling amongst the traffic. He's following Button. We saw them having to change his fuel rig, of course. That's what put him slightly further down the field. Button still in 8th. That's the final points-paying position at the moment. It's going to be tough to score points today.
Certainly is. Here is the race leader then. This is lap 27. Alonso, look at the margin. 9.2 over Raikkonen. He wants to think that he's not really having to race Raikkonen today, considering that the Finn came from 13th on the grid. But, oh, that's Sato off the racetrack. Sato was in 6th in a battle with Barrichello and Jenson Button. What happened?
And that's a desperately late move, a little bit similar to Nürburgring last year, where he tried to get past Jarno Trulli in the Toyota, and that's a good 30 metres too late on the brakes there. That one took him. He's a brave boy, but that will hurt him badly in this race. We've been talking about fake poles recently, where drivers with low fuel loads are on pole and getting all the glory. Alonso certainly wasn't a fake pole this weekend, but it just shows you how good Raikkonen would have been. We're on lap 28, and he still hasn't stopped for fuel. He is now, by the looks of it.
Not quite half distance in this Grand Prix. He's on a different strategy then from Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. This will drop him about 28 seconds behind Alonso. A lot of work to do, but it should get him out in front of Montoya. That's the crucial thing.
Those tyres look beautiful at the back, a little bit scruffy on the front right, which is a passenger through a lot of the fast corners here, and therefore tends to pick up the rubber. But Raikkonen then out of the pits, where is he?
Montoya is behind him on the racetrack. Raikkonen, by that incredible quick driving then over the last few laps, has managed to jump Montoya. So both McLarens have got in front of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. That's decisive for this Grand Prix.
We're about to watch Montoya lock his right front. Quite unloaded there, so not too much damage. You can just see the darker, slight flat patch that he creates. That'll give him a mild vibration down the back straight. That one wasn't too bad, and it was relatively low speed.
Into the pits comes Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. He's the first of the front runners on a 3-stopper this afternoon to make their second stop of the afternoon, all clinical. And clockwork like you would expect from the Ferrari team, with so much success they've had over the last few years, and pit work has been a very big part of that. But Schumacher will be disappointed. He got held up in the opening phase of this race by Jarno Trulli's Toyota, and it meant that he fell prey to the two McLarens of Raikkonen and Montoya. Now, Alonso, I believe, is 13 laps into a 19-lap stint as Sato pits from 9th place. So Alonso has 5, 6, 7 laps more to go in this stint, whereas the McLarens are in the early stages of a 25-lap stint. So the strategies are completely different now. In this middle part of the Grand Prix, you'll see the McLarens come a lot closer to Kimi Raikkonen, and it'll be very decisive for them how close they can get to him before the final round of pit stops. That's where this race will be won and lost. It's Prisaka, I believe, who has pulled off. He was sent back out again, but obviously there's something wrong with the left rear corner of that car. Looks like a puncture.
Yeah. It's the tread has come off. The tread's just where the tread goes into the sidewalls, where they're under pressure. So let's hope that's a puncture, a pure puncture, and not some kind of tyre pattern. It's not hard on the tyres here. The ironical thing is it's the hardest place for tyres in the world of Formula One is not turn 13 at Indianapolis, it's Copse Corner at Silverstone and turn 3 in Barcelona. That's where the peak loads are in a Formula One tyre, but that's another story to get into on a different day. Nick Heidfeld pits from 11th, still in a big squabble with Coulthard in the Red Bull.
It's been a tough week for BMW Williams, or certainly for the Williams half of the equation, with the news coming from BMW that they're buying the Sauber team. It'll happen beginning of next season. The team will be the BMW Works team. They'll be based in Switzerland as a Swiss company, but as a division of BMW Motorsport. Mario Tyson, the very ambitious technical director of BMW, just not happy really with the results they've achieved with Williams. They were ahead of target for the first few years, came in together in 2000, 2001. They nearly won the championship in 2003, but last year was such a massive step back for them, and they had a good look at the landscape of Formula One and decided the best way forward for BMW is to own our own team, like Renault do, like Toyota do. The Renault team manager just having a good look down the pit lane to see what Ferrari are up to. Pit stop is what they're up to. Rubens Barrichello's second stop of the afternoon on lap 40.
Alonso really working hard to get his car into 180 for some reason. Still plenty of meat left on the Bridgestones too. So I believe that the tyre manufacturers, in terms of wear rate, are beginning to get on top of this one tyre for the Grand Prix situation. Obviously, it's taken them a few races to understand it, but you have to say, yellow flag obviously waved for Minardi of Christian Albers, I believe that is, who bumps his head onto, and is that another left rear tyre failure? Yes, it is. He bumped his head on the tractor as he got out, which would have given him a bit of a wake-up call. Down at turn 2, the long Estoril corner. So that's both Minardis out then, with a left rear tyre problem. Puncture, elimination, whatever.
Into the pits comes the race leader then. Lap 42.
That's a decent run he's made there, isn't it? And he's given himself a 34-second lead. Fingers on the buttons, ready to just let the launch control take it away, and Flavio knows that will get the job done. That was very nice for Alonso. He's picked up the pace, and he's done everything he had to just take the fizz out of the McLaren opposition. He's taken the fizz out of Fisichella's opposition. He's 70 seconds behind him. And here's what happened to Christian Albers in the Minardi, a left rear tyre deflation across the gravel trap, almost without slowing down, and hard into the barrier. The gravel traps are very well prepared here, but it didn't slow him much at all, did it? Kimi Raikkonen in the 180 corner, struggling to get the nose in, and then the back stepping out as the tyres just begin to wear. Alonso leads then from Raikkonen in second place, Montoya third, Michael Schumacher fourth, Trulli holding fifth, Button up to sixth.
Lap 47 of the French Grand Prix, and Montoya's problems are really coming alive now. Michael Schumacher goes past him in real time, and Montoya, we believe, has got an engine problem. Martin feels that you heard the engine dragging a little bit. Jenson Button pits. We've just had Jarno Trulli into the pits as well. He is currently in 7th place. Button there pitting from 5th, but Montoya was giving away half to 3/4 of a second per sector, so almost 3 seconds a lap over the last couple of laps. He was Mark Webber just breezed past him on the straight to unlap himself just the last lap, and you can see how easy it was for Michael Schumacher to get past him as well. So Montoya struggling. He's using one of the older specification Mercedes engines. They did bring a new engine here this weekend, which Raikkonen blew up on Friday. Montoya was on the second race with this engine. Well, he didn't do much at Indianapolis, did it? But just looks like it's letting go here this weekend. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, whether it's an engine failure or a misfire or a cracked exhaust or whatever, it does sound rough. And I'm afraid to say that it's terminal because the mechanics have cleared a space in the McLaren garage for Juan Pablo Montoya. They're about to bring him in. Martin Whitmarsh off the pit wall. They're talking to him on the radio. They're going to retire Montoya in this McLaren Mercedes.
He's not going to make it back to the pits, unfortunately. I'd imagine it's some kind of fuel problem. It's as if he was just gradually losing power. No smoke and no bits and pieces flying out the side of the engine. That's a systems problem rather than a structural problem, I would suspect. And, well, that puts Michael up into third, and currently Villeneuve up into fourth. Where's he come from? Jenson Button has passed in the pit stops Jarno Trulli. He's now up to P6, and he can get away truly with his mirrors full of Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher as Heidfeld pits. Coulthard has now passed him too. Coulthard ahead of both Williams now. Williams really the last of the budgeted teams, you'd have to say, and having a dismal afternoon.
They really are, aren't they? I mean, Heidfeld was 18 seconds behind Coulthard before that round of pit stops. As you can see, Alonso puts a lap on Rubens Barrichello. So 8th place man, Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari, is lapped by race leader Fernando Alonso. This time last year, Barrichello at this very corner, as Villeneuve makes his pit stop. At that final corner, Barrichello jumped Jarno Trulli in the Renault to grab the final podium spot. He finished on that day behind Fernando Alonso on the racetrack. What a difference a year makes. Alonso in the Renault laps a Ferrari at Magny-Cours. 21 laps to go.
Yes, and he's also about to lap the guy who started on the front row of the grid with him, Jarno Trulli. Such was the pace he had in the early stages of the Grand Prix, and the response that he's given once the McLarens went on the rampage. His lead over Raikkonen at the moment down to 12.9 seconds. Raikkonen, they're a stop apart, aren't they?
So Trulli very neatly gets out of his way before the high-speed Nürburgring chicane, carrying 160 miles an hour on the entry to that, about 130 miles an hour through it. Alonso is on such a charge here this afternoon. Even despite the fact he's lapping cars, he's still going mighty quick. Here's the other fast chicane here. Let's enjoy this. Oh, what a feeling that must be to go through when you stand on the side of the racetrack and watch them whip through there at 130 miles an hour. You look at it and you think, in a road car, I'd be lucky to get through there at 50. And the grip these cars have, the way the aerodynamics force them to the ground, absolutely incredible. Heidfeld in the pits again. He was in just a lap or two ago.
Yeah, that's his fourth stop. Clearly got a problem. He's down in 13th at the moment, and is going to come under pressure soon from Montero and co at the back of the field. That's the pickup you get on the inside right front tyre. That, as I say, is mostly a passenger through, or relatively speaking, a passenger through the long Estoril corner, and tends to just get a lot of what we call pickup.
There goes Montoya's car, hoisted away. It's hard for Williams. I'm sure everybody back at home in Grove is watching this Grand Prix with us here on ITV, and they're all scratching their heads as well. They've come here with, I'm told, 22 new parts as Takuma Sato goes off the road yet again. Sato in 10th place. That's the second time he's gone off the road. He outbraked himself into the, and Jarno Trulli, into the Adelaide hairpin earlier on.
There you go, you can see the dust in the distance, and what's happened is somebody's put a lot of gravel on the track. Sato's gone off in sympathy, just keeps it out of the wall. Coulthard and Webber will pass him while he's out. He did well to keep it going, actually. So what I want to know is who went off ahead of him.
Well, the two cars in front of him on the road in the race are Ralf Schumacher 8 seconds in front and Villeneuve 3 seconds in front of him. So it looked like someone a bit closer than that, possibly a back marker.
Well, somebody dropped it in the left-hander of turn 1 and sort of gone a bit through the gravel trap, dragged some gravel into the heart of turn 2, and that's where Sato went off. Button up to P5 now.
Into the pits for the third time this afternoon comes Michael Schumacher.
It's just procedural stuff. Clear out the side pods, check the tyre wear. Give him a fresh load of fuel. Now that front left of his is looking a little bit thin. Around about 3 degrees of front camber, so the inside, the top of the tyre leaning in towards the chassis. So you'll always get the inside of the tyre wearing first. Let's put camber thrust into the tyre to generate the grip.
Well, there's Giancarlo Fisichella. Michael Schumacher has emerged in front of him, so he's held on to his podium slot at the moment as Schumacher. So he's looking set for another podium finish here this season. He's the winner in Indianapolis, podium in second place in Montreal, second place also in San Marino. It's not been a vintage season for Michael Schumacher, but it's starting to come good now. They're really improving this car, and with the retirement of Juan Montoya, that's promoted Michael Schumacher to third place. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Down at Williams, it's a problem with the left rear tyre. Nick Heidfeld swears blind that there's something wrong with it. He says the car is so difficult to handle. He came in, they changed the tyre on the left rear, which is interesting because they examined it and there was nothing wrong with it, Martin. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. He came in again, they checked the suspension. They couldn't find anything wrong with the car. So they told him to keep going because that will mean he gets a better qualifying spot at Silverstone.
Alonso, the race leader and championship leader, makes his final pit stop of the afternoon and rejoins in the lead comfortably. He is going so fast, he was coming up to lap his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella in fourth place and Michael Schumacher in third. And Martin, part of the reason he was able to do that is because Schumacher seems to have a problem here as Raikkonen sides his way through. He's in second place at the moment, Schumacher third, Fisichella fourth, Jenson Button fifth. But we think that Michael Schumacher's beginning to lose some grip.
He is, yes. Fisichella needs to clear Michael. He might just be able to make enough space then. I think he's clearly got to have another stop. And yeah, Alonso was just about to lap third and fourth place men, and I think very smartly Renault just hauled him in. He didn't want to get involved in that fight between his teammate Fisichella and Michael Schumacher, as a Raikkonen second place man and comfortably clear. Interestingly now, Alonso and Raikkonen have finished all of their scheduled stops. Alonso clearly has a comfortable track position on that one.
He certainly does, as Nick Heidfeld comes out of the pits. He's been in and out 6 times already this afternoon. There is Giancarlo Fisichella then pitting from fourth place, and that will lose him 20 seconds off the tail of Michael Schumacher. But oh, he stalled it! I don't believe it, he stalled it! That's great news for Jenson Button, but rotten luck for Giancarlo Fisichella. Get it started again, come on!
He has to wait to get neutral. He needs hydraulic pressure, gets neutral, pulls first again, and off he goes. I don't think he really did anything wrong. It sounded like the clutch was dragging quite early on that. It's effectively a button system they use. And as you say, Jenson Button will be a man who will gain nicely from that. Takes the pressure off Michael Schumacher. Puts Button surely in with a great chance now of fourth place.
Down at the Scuderia, and they insist there is no problem with Michael Schumacher's car. They say Michael has not been on the radio to say any problems, any whinges around about tyre wear or anything like that. So we do know that it's Ferrari's way to control the race, to drop all the revs and everything after the second stops, and we're at that point now. So if Jenson gets any closer, I fancy Michael could just up the pace.
And the 80,000 crowd here, many of them Renault employees, the blue and yellow. It's a tremendous coincidence, a happy coincidence really for Renault, that shade of blue you can see around Alonso's cockpit happens to match the colours of Asturias, the region of Spain from which Fernando Alonso hails. And so more and more at these European Grand Prix, we're seeing Spanish fans who we really haven't seen before in Formula One in the last few years. Ever since this kid came along, they've started to travel. They carry their flags, which are, as I say, the same colour as that blue of the Renault. And all of a sudden, you're used to seeing over the years Ferrari red everywhere in the grandstands, as you were saying yesterday. So many teams have tried to get Jaguar green or McLaren silver, get the grandstands to buy into the dream and the image, but it seems that Renault are doing it all thanks to this kid.
Yep, let's give Renault the French Grand Prix as long as London gets the 2012 Olympics. We'll trade them right now. We'll get it anyway. Alonso into lap 69, the penultimate lap. Briatore there looking decidedly nervous, not really sure why, 16 seconds ahead. And this surely stamps his Alonso's authority on the World Championship at this pivotal month, as you were saying, James. A lot of points to be won and lost this month.
Absolutely. 40 points in the Drivers' Championship up for grabs before the end of July. It's an important weekend for Flavio Briatore, the boss of the Renault team, because his new boss, Carlos Ghosn, who is the president of Renault, he's just taken over from Louis Schweitzer, who's been the president for many, many years and who was on the board which voted for Renault to come back into Formula One. And with a full onslaught, there were some stories that Ghosn wasn't a big Formula One fan. He didn't think it was value for money for the hundreds of millions of dollars it cost him every year. He was here this morning, gave a press conference at which he said, "Hey, I like Formula One as long as we win, it's an investment. When we lose, it's an expense." It was a great way of putting it, and we will stick around for as long as we're successful, which puts a little bit of pressure on Flavio and his team. But if they carry on having afternoons like this, then you can expect that Mr. Ghosn will carry on writing the checks for Renault. Across the line to complete the penultimate lap goes Fernando Alonso. He's been peerless here this afternoon. I'm not even going to ask you who your driver of the day is, because presumably it's got to be him for his amazing performance.
Yeah, it's an easy one, isn't it? Alonso, well, his qualifying performance was sensational, but his race pace was some of the strongest I've seen since Michael Schumacher was clearly dominating Formula One. Alonso just really whooped them. He beat them easy.
So into the final lap goes the Renault. It's been an amazing performance from him. The last time, as I said at the beginning, that a Renault car won the French Grand Prix was when Alonso wasn't even 2 years old, back in 1983. Alain Prost, who's here this afternoon, won many races with Renault engines, won a few in a Renault chassis as well. He won that day in Paul Ricard in the south of France. And now the French, who have no driver in the field here for the first time in 40 years, which is certainly a source of great sadness to them. They have a big corporate presence in Formula One through Michelin, the tyre company, and of course Renault as well, the manufacturer of the engine and chassis. And what a historic day for Fernando Alonso, who crosses the line for his 5th Grand Prix victory of the season. He crawls across the line. It's the 6th win for him in only 59 Grand Prix starts. Yes, Fernando, you've won the big 5 already, and this is only the 10th Grand Prix of the year.
Fernando Alonso, a class apart, a super drive from Kimi Raikkonen making that podium. Michael Schumacher, a minute off, clinging on. We will return with all the reaction, plus Tony Jardine's verdict.
Britain's biggest day of motorsport starts any time now. Go! Button now up into 4th place. Oh, it's a big crash for Jarno Trulli. What a tremendous drive by Michael Schumacher.
Yes, we go to Silverstone next weekend. It's not far either for Fernando Alonso, who lives in Oxford. 5th win of the season for number 5 for the brilliant Spaniard. Raikkonen doing so well to get 2nd place after that engine change, forcing to start 13th. Michael Schumacher on the podium once again. 1st points of the season for Jenson Button. Superb that. And Trulli, who was started on the front row, finished 5th. Fisichella, his pits problem really didn't help him at all. Ralf Schumacher didn't see too much of Ralf, and that's a good effort to get points. He was first out in qualifying, and Villeneuve won for Sauber. This is how the Drivers' Championship looks now, and is a 24-point gap at the top between Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso. 5 points between Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. The Williams really struggled today. Fisichella has 20 points. David Coulthard, 17, remains the top Brit. But Fernando Alonso has blown the rest away.
Fernando, congratulations. An absolutely flawless race by you. Did you have any problems at all?
No, to be honest, it was a fantastic race. From the beginning, the start, I was pushing quite hard, and Jarno was not able to follow me. And then in lap 20, I had like 20 seconds gap, so I was controlling the race. We dropped the revs in the engine, we saved a little bit the tires, and from then was quite easy.
Well, Kimi, after the 10th place drop down, is 2nd the best you could do today?
Looks like. Of course, it's disappointing, and then even it's the 2nd place, but
For me, at least, it's disappointing what happened on a Friday, and it's pretty much destroyed our chances of winning the race. But I guess everybody could see that we were very quick in the qualifying and in the race. So without any problems, I think so we should have really won the race. But that's racing.
How hard was it out there?
It was hard because I was sitting all the time in a way in traffic and hadn't been able to drive my pace properly. When I was able, it was just to the situation was done basically, the race, so it was then just drive it home.
Well, Jenson, you've told me off on a couple of occasions for mentioning the fact that you didn't have any points, so let me be amongst the first to congratulate you. You're off the mark.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a nice feeling. You know, it would have been nice to have got on the podium, but it's a great result for us. We've struggled this year for various reasons, so I can't even talk. But it's great to get some points, and this is a good base for Silverstone. Hopefully we're going to have a great race there.
We were hoping, I mean, we could see you gently closing in on Michael. We were all hoping you were going to get that podium. You just didn't have enough pace left?
No, and in one of the corners I had a problem shifting down from fourth to second, and it was just pushing me on. I was getting big issues there. So anyway, it's a great result, and hopefully we're going to have lots of fans cheering us on in Silverstone.
This is a fantastic result, isn't it? Going particularly, it's a fantastic result anyway, but especially in the build-up to your home Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, some people might not think it is, but for us to get fourth at the moment is a great result, and you know, I'm sure everyone's going to be pretty chuffed for that, and we're going to be positive for next weekend, where hopefully we can have the same sort of result.
You've been threatening for a while. I mean, you finally did deliver, but there've got to be more to come. This has got to be the start of the push forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of luck, really. I mean, we have made some mistakes as well, the team and myself, so it's good to be on the scoreboard, and I'm going to have a good evening this evening. Not too much, because we're racing next weekend, but I might have a beer.
Well, I think our season starts here for the second time, maybe, and good polished performance from Jenson. A lot of challenging from Taku, didn't quite work, but he tries.
Well, Tony, thank goodness we had a decent full race. Not the most spectacular Grand Prix we've ever enjoyed. One fellow out there did try to overtake, and I suppose he paid the penalty.
Unfortunately, Takuma Sato, but it's such a high downforce track, and the teams have won back so much downforce. There's Sato trying it down the inside. He was 7th then, and he was amongst Barrichello and Button. He tried again later to get past Trulli into 5th place and just slid wide like that. He never kept trying, although he ended up in 11th place. Have a look at it again. Very ambitious, very slippy out there, and very high downforce track.
Huge courage shown throughout the weekend by Kimi Räikkönen. The weekend ruined by that engine change on Friday. 13th on the grid, kept going for a long time and ended up on the podium. Brilliant stuff, really.
Well, Alonso was brilliant, but for me, this drive from 13th place was the drive of the race. He stayed out long, a very, very brave, heavy fuel strategy, just going 2 stops for Kimi Räikkönen. He came in on lap 28, you know, after everyone had been in, and he's still putting in these amazing lap times and getting 2nd from there. That's fabulous, keeping championship hopes alive.
This place, Manicourt, is notoriously difficult for tyres, and not quite as tough as Indianapolis, I'm delighted to say, but Christian Albers suffered a bit because of that, didn't he?
Yeah, but it was a valve problem they discovered later on, but it's the high-speed turn through Estoril is more worrying, and you see the tyre barriers doing their job there, absorbing all the impact and the energy of that big crash, only for him to go and bump his head on the tractor there afterwards. He's okay, he's fine, he still had his crash helmet on.
Headbutting the tractor might not have been the brightest idea he's ever had in his life, but great to see Jenson Button getting points here at last, and a superb timing as well with Silverstone looming.
I mean, he's had the phantom points, hasn't he? He's had the Imola situation, he's had Canada with the pole, and then he's had the crash, and now genuinely in this pit stop, and he got past Trulli as well, up into 6th place from this pit stop, and towards a final 4th place finish. Couldn't quite catch Michael Schumacher at the end, matching him for lap time, but that sets him up beautifully for Silverstone, and first genuine points for BAR this year.
They want to win this season. Do you think they're capable of nicking one somewhere?
I do, because they've got the confidence back. They did a massive test at Jerez before coming here with aerodynamics and the engine, and they were fastest there. They beat all the other cars. The potential is still in the BAR Honda.
But how about that man, Fernando? He's lapped everybody, hasn't he, except the two who are with him on the podium. A brilliant, dominant display from him and from Renault.
But he's done it every which way this year. He's had the pressure races like in San Marino. You know, he's had the races where he's nursed the car at Monte Carlo when the tyres were going. He deserved this victory. A dominant victory, yes. He crushed the opposition. And Alain Prost, a man there who's won the French Grand Prix for Renault twice in 81 and 83, giving him the trophy. A significant moment for Renault.
Michael Schumacher has been playing the mind games on Fernando Alonso. Alonso's not bad with the old cards himself, is it? He's just not being affected by it.
No, absolutely not. No, ice cool, super cool. I mean, but they are happy. The younger drivers, particularly Alonso, want Michael Schumacher still out there because they want to beat him up.
Final word about the British Grand Prix, the prospects.
Well, I think the prospects are tremendous. You've got Ferrari in the mix, but I think we're going to have a fabulous battle between the Renaults and the McLarens, and hopefully Button mixing it, looking for a podium place.
And the British Grand Prix is a 100,000 sellout as well. Let me just bring you right up to date with how things are looking in the Constructors' Championship now. Renault looking very, very healthy up there. 13 points for them today means they have 89 points, an 18-point gap back to McLaren. Ferrari on 69. Toyota, good showing from them today. Both cars score, and that those 6 points take them above BMW Williams. It is half-term in the season. Ted Kravitz has the team report.
Well, if only the track action was as hot as the track temperature today. For Ferrari, Michael Schumacher managed to haul the car onto the podium, but Rubens was slow in 9th. BAR, well, get the bunting out, organise a street party. BAR have their first points of the season, although Jensen was lapped and Takuma Sato made some unforced errors. Renault, absolutely flawless for Fernando Alonso, although how much more bad luck can Giancarlo Fisichella take? It was the weekend from hell for Williams BMW. Mark Webber burnt his bottom, Nick Heidfeld finished 14th. McLaren, poor reliability is threatening to ruin their season. Kimi Raikkonen's sure he would have won but for the 10th-place engine penalty. Montoya retired with hydraulics failure. For Sauber, a point for Jacques Villeneuve ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Another hydraulics failure, this time for Massa. Red Bull need more speed. DC only 10th. Clean out with fuel pressure failure. For Toyota, Jarno Trulli was a mobile chicane for most of the afternoon, although they did score double points. Jordan trailed in towards the end, and Minardi didn't replace their dust caps during a pit stop, and that's what caused their tyres to deflate.
Thanks very much indeed, Ted. So it is Silverstone, here we come. Extensive coverage here on ITV1 throughout the weekend. Live qualifying 12:10 on the Saturday. Our pre-race show from noon on the Sunday. Highlights at 11:40. Final thought for you Button and Coulthard fans in particular. Fernando Alonso has raced 3 times at Silverstone. He has never finished higher than 10th. Good night.